Hey guys, BuildZoid here, and today we're going to be trying a sort of new idea for a video because, well, let's start from the beginning. So, 11th gen Intel added the ability to change the memory timings on the fly, as in, while the system was running, you could change your memory timings. This doesn't work for all of the timings, like cast latency and cast write latency are not adjustable while the system is running on 12th gen or 11th gen, but pretty much everything else you can actually change while in the operating system and, like, running stuff. And so that led to a bunch of ideas. Like, I really wanted to try maybe do a video, like, figure out a way to do a video where, like, while sitting in, like, a game or something, I just change a bunch of timings and you can watch the FPS change. Because you can actually do that with certain GPU benchmarks where you just park the GPU in a very, like, steady FPS scene, and as you clock the GPU up and down, the FPS of the scene changes very predictably. And that's kind of neat that you can do that with GPUs. I don't actually know of a like benchmark that would do that with RAM though. So yeah, until I figure that out, I guess I'm not making that. But the other thing you can do, which is kind of more fun, or arguably more useful, is that you can actually just check what the minimum values for your memory timings are by running a stress test and just changing them as the stress test is running, which is pretty neat. So anyway, the setup that we're running here is the 12900K on an MSI Z690 UniFi X. The 12900K is on that air cooler. The air cooler is completely inadequate for that 12900K, especially because it's not even, like, bolted to the motherboard. It's just sitting there. So the 12900K is locked at 4.8 gigahertz right now because, well, even at 4.8 gigahertz, that CPU isn't particularly thrilled about my choice of cooling solution, but it's fine for the purposes of this video, and that's the part I care about. Anyway, so yeah, the cooling situation is a bit suboptimal, but the memory sticks are these G.Skill Trident Z5 RGB DIMMs that I have on loan from a friend. Yeah, they're 6036, 36, 36. There's some kind of 16 gigabit Samsung memory die. I don't know what specific die it is. I think it's M die. Because, like, the funny thing with memory manufacturers is, like, the first die revision is always M, or almost always M. And then after they release an M die, they usually release an A die. Though Samsung sometimes just, like, randomly spits out, like, an S die. So, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Anyway, it's some kind of Samsung 16 gigabit die. Currently, Samsung makes only one DDR5 memory chip, so there's really not many options for what it can be. It's like every Samsung DDR5 kit currently produced uses this memory, or uses this same memory chip. It's just, I don't know what that chip is called because Samsung's website, I don't think, like, last I checked, I couldn't find any specifics on what this memory chip is. Anyway, let's get into the timing adjustment. So here we are in Windows, and I'm going to be using the Asus Mem Tweak software to do this. MSI has their own program for doing this, but I like Mem Tweak It. Like, I use Mem Tweak It on Gigabyte boards. I use Mem Tweak It on Asus boards. Gigabyte doesn't have their own software, so yeah. And actually, if Gigabyte had their own timing adjustment software, it would probably be extremely clunky. So I would have probably used Mem Tweak It anyway. But yeah, so you know, I use Mem Tweak It on Asus. I use it on Gigabyte, so I'm also going to use it on MSI boards because I'm just used to the layout at this point. And anyway, so Mem Tweak It allows us to change the memory timings on the fly. Like, on some motherboards, you might have to enable the ability to change the memory timings on the fly. On the UniFi X, that comes pre-enabled. So yeah, here we are just running memtest, and we can just change timings. And in theory, we should see our memory like testing speed go up as I make certain adjustments. And the thing we're going to start with is just the TRRDs. Because that is a nice, safe adjustment that should hopefully just give us a bunch of performance right off the bat. And we're just going to drop both of those straight to 4. And if everything works out the way I want it to, this will not crash. Yeah. So it didn't crash. And It also didn't really change the performance very much, to my great disappointment. Like, these two timings generally massively improved memory throughput, but apparently we are bottlenecked elsewhere. Okay, the next thing we're going to change is this. And we're just going to max that completely out. And, yep, that apply. Okay, yeah, that made a bit more of a difference to the performance, didn't it? So, yeah, unfortunately, the memtest software also just floats around in terms of bandwidth a bit on its own. But anyway, so yeah, you can just change memory timings like this on the fly. And the neat thing is, if you set something too low, like say, we're going to now walk the TRFC down, because the thing is, I've already fiddled with this memory a bunch, so I already know a few settings that, like, work well enough. Okay, like, I'm not 100% certain that 4.4 is stable across, like, a very wide frequency range, but at, what is it? We're at 6,400 megabits per second, so right now we're at 3,200 megahertz. Yeah, like, 4.4 works just fine. Anyway, so what we're going to punch in now... Oh, I know why it didn't do anything, because I didn't change TFAW. That's still at 32. 16? That still didn't do anything. Man, DDR5 and its insane amounts of memory bandwidth. I mean, we did go up from like 34 gigabytes per second to 36, but that's mostly because of the TREFI getting completely maxed out. Anyway, let's try walk the TRFC down a bit. So we're at 480 right now. We're going to try 466, which should work. Yeah, that's fine. So 455. I think pretty soon we should start seeing like a flood of errors come in. It might blue screen instantly, but I would prefer if we get a flood of errors first. Okay, still good. Where are the errors? 422? Hello? It's not supposed to be able to go this low. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So if we bump it back up to 444, yeah, so you can see, like, we just lost a bunch of data. Because basically what this timing controls is the refresh cycle. And that's how long, like, this isn't how quickly the memory refreshes. This is just how long we're willing to wait for the memory to refresh. If you don't give the memory enough time to refresh itself, you start losing data. Actually, I'm not even sure that you straight up start losing data. You definitely start corrupting it, though, as well as probably just straight up losing it. So yeah, we just got a lot of very nice round errors as just like a bunch of data just disappeared as the refresh cycle was cut. Like, it's not that we're like trying to refresh the RAM too quickly. We are like cutting it off before it finishes refreshing. So anyway, yeah, so what was it? 411? Okay, yeah, 411 is definitely too low, because at this point it just straight up locked up, so I'm just going to reset the system. Oh, right, this is the one downside to this. It hard locks. Yep. Okay, we're going to have to power cycle the power supply. Oh, well, no big deal. I guess I could have zoomed in the camera on the postcode a bit. Anyway, that just fires right up. It's currently got fast boot enabled, so it's not actually retraining the memory. So there's like no reason for it not to be able to start. So I guess if you have a normal system, this is actually not that convenient for you, because like resetting the PSU is arguably more of a problem than like clearing your BIOS potentially, but yeah, anyway, if you're on an open air test bench where you can just reach the power supply switch easily enough, then this is actually really convenient. And yes, it carries an extremely high risk of completely destroying your operating system if you're doing this, because if the OS is doing like any file manipulation in the background, and you're fiddling with your memory timings like this, yeah, you can very quickly end up with a lot of very corrupted files. So, yeah, don't do this on like your main operating system if you care about your data like staying intact. Anyway, so we're gonna like fire off mem test again and also just pull up core temp. So yeah, we're gonna wait for this to load up, and it'll be stable again because we just reset it. Oh, I did also want to show you the voltage settings that I have in the BIOS right now, but the thing is they're sort of temporary, and I'm not sure that they're that like I'm not sure they're all that useful right now. But anyway, CPU VDDQ's at like, actually I don't remember what it's at. I think it's 1.35 for CPU VDDQ and VDD2, and then the memory is at 1.45 volts for both rails. Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna start with the TRRDs again. Because that worked. Like, we want to, figure out what doesn't work. So we're going to go 4416. And also this time I want to catch if the performance goes up. Though for some reason we're starting out at like, well, no, it's coming down. Yeah. Unfortunately, the bandwidth does go up and down over time, which is annoying. I wish the test was more consistent on that, because then it would also be like a really convenient benchmark. Unfortunately, that's not going to work out. Anyway, let's max that one out. And I guess we're going to go for 455 on the refresh cycle. And then the next thing I want to try is I want to try 12 on the read-to-read timing. So on Hynix DIMMs, you can normally hit 11 on that at 6400 megabits per second. That really isn't a problem. Yep, 12 works. I wonder if these will do 18. Okay, that's pretty normal DDR5 things right there. I wonder... Now, this one, in my experience, like my past experience with these DIMMs, is that the write-to-write timing, for some reason, like, doesn't go very low. So we're going to start with 16. And yeah, 16 works. And then we're going to drop it down to 15. And I expect it to lock up. Oh, no, it's still running. Okay. 14. Still running. Wait, what? What? Okay, so I guess there's some kind of weird oh, 12 doesn't work. Okay. Oh, so that is very interesting, because on yeah, so on Hynix you can normally hit like 9 on the right-to-right timing. So this isn't that much worse. Like it hard locks at 12. It might work at like 13, 14, something like that. Oh, and let's go into the BIOS and I'll just take you through the settings. So yeah, 4.8 on the core, 4.5 on the ring. 1.25 volts on the CPU with mode 7 LLC. I could probably drop the voltage a bit on that. System agent is just at 1.1 volts because we're not at a very high memory speed. We don't need a lot of system agent. The VDDQ and VDD2 are at 1.3, 1.35. 2 volts VCC in. I've bumped the PLL voltages because the memory controller on the CPU is garbage, and without adjusting the PLLs, it really doesn't like to run anything. Oh, and I left the memory at 1.5 volts, not 1.45, but there is a fan on the memory stick, so, I'm not concerned about the voltage in this scenario. Anyway, let's reset and get back to breaking the operating system, because that's realistically what I'm doing here. Now, theoretically, you could actually go through this whole process of like setting up all of the timings in the operating system, taking a screenshot of them, running your running all of your memory stress tests, and then going into the BIOS to set all of your timings. and then running another memory stress test, because just because it worked once doesn't mean it'll work twice, especially if you actually have to like retrain the memory settings. But anyway, so Mem Tweak it is open again. We're gonna pull up core temp. Did I seriously? Oh no, I have HCI down there. Yeah, so 16. 188. I'm not letting the, like, if the pro version of HCI memtest will automatically fill all the unused memory, but the thing is the system gets a bit laggy if you do that a lot of the time, so yeah, we're not going to do that. I'm giving myself a little bit of space just for, like, being able to use the system. Also, while this is opening up, it screws with your ability to move windows around, yeah, so as it initializes threads, so... For whatever reason, most memory stress tests, like most good memory stress tests, are incredibly clunky. Like testmem 5 is even worse. testmem 5, testmem 5 is a very good memory stress test, and it's great that it's free, but it is so freaking clunky. Anyway, so we're gonna start over with the TRDs at 4. Max out our TREFI. TFAW at 16. We should be able to drop TCK all the way down to 4. Going to apply all of that. Bam, that just works as I'd expect it to. We're going to go down to 12 on our read-to-read timing and 18 on our read-to-writes. Incidentally, you can't run the different group read-to-write lower than the same group. That, like, for a lot of other, like, same group, different group timings, the whole reason why there is even a separation between a same group and a different group timing is that typically it is expected that the same group timing can't be as short as the different group timing, but in my experience, a lot of the time they can be exactly the same. And other times your different group timing can be significantly lower than your same group timing, but yeah, for certain timings, they can be exactly the same, and that works just fine. So anyway, we're going to drop this down. I don't want to drop it all the way down to 13, considering that 12 crashed. So we're going to drop that down to 14 for now. The other thing I want to check is, can we run 7? Yes. Okay, so that's typical DDR5 things there. Okay, 7 works for the different group timings. Can we do 11 for read-to-read? Yes. I am not sure that I want to try low. Well, I don't know. I don't want to crash again immediately. So now we're going to work on these 2 timings over here. These basically change the TWR value. The way this works is that, like, TWR is the write recovery. So it basically is a, like, after you complete a write operation, something delay. I don't really want to get into explaining what every timing does today, so we'll just leave it at that. Someday I might make a video that actually explains what that timing does in more detail. But anyway, the way that timing is implemented on Intel memory controllers is it doesn't actually exist. And instead you adjust these 2 timings over here, and that changes your TWR value. So, and I'm not sure what happens if you adjust just one of them. Yeah, nothing changes. So you do have to change both of them at the same time. And then that comes down over time. So, yeah. So 122 works, and we're going to try 100. And 100 doesn't work. Okay. That's not great, to be completely honest. On Hynix DIMMs, those 2, you can easily hit, like, less than 50. Also, this just completely locked up the system again, so I got to go hit the power supply. Like, technically speaking, the OC controller thing for this board has a retry button, but I forgot to grab the OC controller, and I also don't know where it is right now. And yeah, so we're just kind of going to roll with this as is. So anyway, TWR does not go very low, which I am kind of, yeah. So that's kind of like the, well, no, we also have the write-to-write timing difference compared to Hynix DIMMs. Like, Hynix DIMMs will quite happily do 9. Actually, if you like the idea of this video and, like, how it works, then leave a comment, because well, I don't know, maybe I'll just do a video showing like screenshots of all, like, well, this is the thing. Like, the thing I don't like about just showing screenshots is just it's too easy to just like fake things. Okay? Like, yeah. Like, it's not like I would fake the screenshots, but it always feels to me like screenshots are very indirect in terms of delivering, like, this is the best settings that work. Right? Whereas if you show that, hey, if I change any of these settings, even one, like, if I lower any of these timings even one more tick, then it just crashes. Like, that is a very direct demonstration of, like, this is at its limits. It's not getting better. Whereas in a screenshot, you're always sitting there and it's like, well, did he try this? Did he try that? Oh no, I fired it off with 1922. Oh, well, I think I'll just close this and that should free up enough memory. The system stays mostly usable still. Anyway, so we need to wait for this to start running again. So yeah, it can't do low TWR, which is, I'm not sure that's too much of a problem for performance. Like, I guess we'll find out once I actually, like, run a benchmark on this. Also, these two timings are actually somewhat related to your cast latency. So as you change your cast latency timing, these can actually, like, the values that work for these two are going to be different over time, which is really frustrating. As in, like, as you lower your cast latency, you can actually run these lower and lower as well. Yeah, this is just like an Intel memory controller thing. On AMD, you don't have anything like this. You just straight up have a TWR timing and you change that and you don't have to deal with all of this, but Intel things. Anyway, so since 110 didn't, well, 100 didn't work, let's try 112. 112 works, and we're at 67. Cool. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that does line up with my past experience with these DIMMs. That less than 60 is not a good time. Okay, TCK to 4. We're not going to change RTP just yet. No, 4. The thing is, like that, well, I trust the Intel documentation potentially to a fault, but the Intel documentation says this doesn't go below 4, and so we're not going to set it below 4. Anyway, let's try 16 for a read to pre-charge. Okay, that works. I would hope it does. 11, 7. I wonder if 17 works. On Hynix, 17 does work, so maybe here. Yeah, it works. Cool. So we're going to go to 14.7. I'm not going to change that just yet. We're going to go 80, apply. Okay, that all runs quite happily. Oh, I didn't max out the TREFI yet. Yeah, the TREFI is like the main place that you get a ton of performance from on DDR5, and you can really see that in like how the memory bandwidth goes up. Actually, what if I intentionally drop it like really low, like 444? Oh wait, no, the performance is still going up. Stupid memory test. 255. Okay, now it's dropping. Oh, whoa, yeah, I just deleted a bunch of performance by doing that. Yeah, so basically now the memory is spending an absolute ton of time refreshing. Like, literally what it's doing is every 2,500 clock cycles, it is refreshing itself. And while the memory is refreshing, you cannot do anything. You can't write, you can't read, nothing can be done. So yeah, what I just did was delete a bunch of performance for no good, like for demonstration purposes, for science, if you will. Though quite frankly, you could just read the DDR5 documentation and you'd come to the same conclusion. Lowering your TREFI to that extent is a bad idea. Anyway, so 455. The thing I'm wondering about is like, what's the difference between like 65,000 and the 260,000? Because 65,000 is sort of like, I know for sure 65,000. Well, with Hynix DIMMs, it definitely works. I don't know about these. Unfortunately, we do need to wait a little bit for the test to ramp up. I would guess that the difference between 65,000 and 260,000 isn't that big. Fortunately, it does take a while to ramp up to full speed. Because while it is like 4 times less frequent refreshes, you need to think of the refreshes less as how infrequently you do them, and more how many clock cycles per second are spent refreshing, right? And with a TRFC of 480 clock cycles, that's not very many like the refresh cycle itself is a very short thing, and the refresh interval just controls how often the refresh cycle is done. So refreshing once every 65,000 clock cycles and once every 260,000 clock cycles probably isn't that big of a performance difference, and we're hitting what, 37 gigabytes per second at this point. And so, yeah, let's just max that all the way out. And we do still see a bit of an uplift, but not much. Actually, now it's coming down again. Yeah, so it looks like we're actually maxed out on the memory bandwidth at this point with this set of timings. Now, next thing I want to change... Well, I'd like to change the write to read timings, but these are always very fiddly in my experience. These are the ones that... Well, I mean, we can just go step by step, right? That's the whole point. 72. Well, actually, I want to try this one first. Let's go straight to 50 from 58. And it does not like that. Oh, boy. I think it locked up the system again. Oh, no, it's rebooting. Okay, good. Okay, so it doesn't do that one low. Oh, no, I autopiloted to the delete button. So, okay, that's the next, I guess, like, big difference compared to SK Hynix, is that on SK Hynix at 6400, I'd expect to be able to do at least 48 for that one, while here we can't do 50. So that's, like, I'm pretty sure if I do this at idle, it'll, yeah. Straight up, won't do 50. Okay. Oh, wait, nope. Don't mash the delete button. But do mash the subscribe button, by the way. Anyway, let's hit Mem Tweak it again. So, it definitely... Man, will it do 56? Okay, so we can change it. Like, sometimes, sometimes there's certain timings that, like, if you change your cast write latency in the OS, it just locks the system. Actually, I can demonstrate that. If we go from 40 to 38, which is a perfectly reasonable adjustment, done. So there are certain timings that you can't change. Cast write latency, because it locks up the system, and the cast latency, because it's glitched out. And I guess I should show that to you as well. You can make some very funny screenshots with DDR5 thanks to the cast latency glitch. Like, funny in the sense that, like, well, it's bugged out. So, yeah, we can do CL2 if we want to. That's another good reason, like, against screenshots of DDR5 setups is just, like, there's, like, because the cast latency timing makes very little difference to overall memory performance, like, you need some there are benchmarks that can pick up on a small cast latency adjustment, but those benchmarks are also so sensitive that, like, the operating system plays as big a role as the memory timings to their overall performance. So at that point, is like, you could have somebody show you a screenshot with, like, DDR5 at CL24, where it's actually at, like, CL30, and that you know, like they've just changed the cache latency in the operating system because look. Oh, look at me. I am RAM OC God. Oh. Fun fact, it is literally impossible to set a cache latency below 24. CPUZ thinks it's real. Okay, CPUZ still hasn't. We're just going to reopen that, right? Cache latency 1. There. So, yeah. With Z690, if you see somebody posting crazy low cache latency, like anything below 24 is just straight up not real. Because you can't set it that low, as far as I know. Like, it straight up is not supported. And then, well, this is bugged out. And also, anything above 24 can still be fake, but it's not... Like, I don't know why anybody would really want to do that. Because, yeah. Like, there's not really much point to this. It's not like being good at RAM overclocking gets you anything. Anyway, well, it gets you marginally more performance in memory limited software, let's put it that way. And that can include some games, but it's very situational. So yeah, it doesn't really get you anywhere. And then now you might be wondering, Buildzoid, why do you spend so much time overclocking RAM? If I knew the answer to that question, my life would be very different, potentially. But yeah, I guess like I just enjoy pushing numbers around. Anyway, so we're going to just start memtest again, and we're going to go back to where we were before all of this messing with cache latency. So yeah, basically the point is you can't actually change the cache latency timing, while in the OS. And you can't change the cache write latency, because it'll crash. You can change TRCD, TRP, TRAS. You can't change the command rate. That'll crash too. But everything else you can mess with. I wish all of these were typable instead of drop downs. Like drop downs are annoying. Let's hit 11, 7, 17, 17, 14, 7, I guess 72, 56. Yep. And that's it. Because the thing is, the timings after that, like read to read DR is for different rank. This is a single rank memory setup. We do not need to worry about that timing. It doesn't do anything. Same goes for DD. DD stands for different DIM. We don't have, technically we have 2 memory sticks in there, but each memory stick is on a different memory channel, and the DD stands for different DIM on the same channel. So if you had a Z690 motherboard with 4 DIM slots, and you had 4 memory sticks in there, then yes, the DD timing would apply to that memory configuration. But we have 2 memory sticks on a Z690 board, therefore the DD timing doesn't do anything, because there isn't a different DIM as far as the memory controller is concerned. So anyway, so we can just ignore all of those. Then we get to this 112, 112, apply. That's all that's all good. Can we do 68 on that? Man, I'm really worried because like this not going below 50 is like that's quite bad. So I'm like really, yeah, okay. Man, that's really bad. So neither of those two can go very low. Well, that's good to know. Oh, right. Don't spam the delete button. We don't actually want to go into the BIOS. I mean, if you want to change the cache latency, you need to go in the BIOS, but we don't currently want to do that. So yeah, I shouldn't be mashing the delete. And we're back in Windows. It still hasn't managed to completely explode on me, which is actually, it's kind of funny. Like sometimes Windows dies very, very quickly, and sometimes it survives just like unimaginable amounts of abuse. Like, this is awful. Please do not do this to your operating system. 118. I mean, 18. Screw it. 1888. There. That's one way to put it. 4. Drop. No, not 2. 4. Yeah. 16. 16. Oh no. Please do that. Okay, there. Okay. Didn't break anything. 112. 112. Wait, what? But 112 was fine before. Why is it not fine now? Oh, it locked up hard. Definitely the worst part of this is starting mem test. It takes too long. Arguably, we don't actually need 16 threads of mem test. Like, I don't think, like, if you're doing very rough testing like this, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Like, obviously, if you're going for full stability, you want to run as many threads as you have CPU threads, but I don't think it would really affect our results with what I'm doing right now. Especially since pretty much the only timing that you can change that doesn't cause an instant crash, but actually spits out errors in the memory stress test is the TRFC. Everything else just doesn't care. So, yeah. Anyway, let's try 8 threads, because I really don't feel like waiting for it, and you know, maybe just giving it less memory to allocate might make it do it faster. Oh, wait, I might have... Oh. Oh, okay. So I might have punched in an incorrect value. That 1 that's currently sitting there is making me awfully nervous. Okay, 1... Why is it crashing now? It worked the entire time before, and now it doesn't. Okay, so evidently this really doesn't like TWR. Maybe it's the temperature of the memory sticks that's affecting that, but... yeah, that is annoying. Okay, so I guess 122 it is, instead of 112. Oh, no, it wants to... No, I'm not patient. I'm not waiting for anything. Okay, it is booting. Oh, I guess the capture card didn't, like, lose the GPU as quickly, and so we got that, like, loading screen for longer. Anyway, Windows still hasn't exploded, so that's nice. So evidently 112 is, like, not okay anymore for some reason. I think it might be a thermal... yeah, it's probably a temperature effect. If I had to guess. And I do, because, like, it's not like, you know, there's not really anything I can do to figure out, like, why is it now not stable when it was before. It's probably a thermal thing. Because that's really, currently that's like pretty much the only variable I'm not controlling for. Other than maybe, like, I guess it could be retrain instability, but the board's in fast boot. So, yeah, I kind of doubt that. I think it might just be dim temperature affecting that. Anyway, let's max out the refresh interval. That works. Drop the TRRDs. Drop RTP, TFall. No, don't touch TCWL. That doesn't work. Where's 4? There's 5. There's 4. I mean, I think it's getting pretty close to dialed at this point. Like, there's not that... I mean, we haven't messed with the TRCD and the TRP and the TRAS, but... Got bad news. If you're a Samsung memory fan, which I don't know why you'd be a Samsung memory fan, because the only good memory chip Samsung... actually, that's not true. There's like 3 good memory chips that Samsung has produced. 4. Samsung B-Die, 8 gigabit DDR4. Very, very good. Pretty much the best DDR4 ever made. Samsung DDR4 4 gigabit E-Die, the predecessor of Samsung B-Die. And then there's DDR3 G-Die, which is this like crazy high clocking 1 gigabit DDR3 memory chip. It's insane. You get it on like super cheap OEM sticks, and they clock like absolutely mad. And then there's Samsung D-Die, which is like G-Die if it clocked worse, and had more density. So anyway, so that's kind of it for like good Samsung memory chips, which admittedly is probably more good memory chips than some of the other memory manufacturers, but I still don't know why you'd want to be a fan of Samsung RAM. Like personally, I find Micron memory chips more interesting, even though a lot of them really don't clock very well. Anyway, let's try lower TRCD and TRP. 38 works, which isn't really surprising. The XMP on this memory kit is 36 at 6000, so you would hope that with as much voltage as I'm shoving into it, it would do 36 at 6400, right? And indeed it does, at least without immediate errors. Let's try 35. Okay. 34? Not okay. We got some errors, but it was so unstable that it crashed before I could try fix it. So, oh no, we got a file error file system error. I wonder if Windows finally blew up then. So 34 does not work. It looks like 36 might be viable. 35 is probably on the edge of stability. TRCD is one of those timings where if you have it just a little bit too close to the limit, it takes a while to detect an error. Or it can take a while to detect an error. It's also generally temperature sensitive on pretty much every RAM ever. Well, no. No, it is. The thing is, like, Samsung B-Die skews the, like, temperature sensitivity definition because it doesn't really scale into negative temperatures, whereas like a lot of other memory chips do. So like SK Hynix DDR5 can do really, really low TRCD if it's really cold. Whereas like most Samsung memory chips don't really behave any better when very cold compared to like 20 degrees Celsius. So yeah, anyway, so 34 TRCD is definitely too low. 35 is probably on the edge. 36 should be viable at the like voltage and frequency we're running right now. So I'm going to drop 36 for TRP as well. I'm just going to punch in like most of the settings right now. Let's do 466. Not that that really makes much of a difference with the TREFI maxed out like it is, but Yep, that all applied. And now really the only thing left is TRAS. Well, I mean, there's also the per bank refresh, but that unfortunately doesn't really go anywhere. It's a lot like the TRFC timing in that sense, right? Like this starts default at 480 and at 411, it's almost instant blue screen, right? So, I mean, I guess we could run 455 and then this probably can do 355. No, it can't. So that answers that. Samsung RAM. Like for comparison on SK Hynix DIMMs, I usually use like 333 and 233. So, yeah. I am quite disappointed by that result. But as far as actually impacting performance, like because the refresh interval is so long, it doesn't really matter. If you were on something like Ryzen where you can't change the refresh interval, at least not on like DDR4 Ryzen, you can't change the refresh interval. There, the TRFC timing is actually way more important than than on like Intel CPUs because you can't change the refresh interval. Um, but yeah, on Intel chips, like since you can raise the refresh interval, the TRFC is not that important. But you know, that's kind of the thing with the Samsung DDR5 is like, oh, you know, it's a little bit worse at this, it's a little bit worse at that, it's a little bit worse at this, it's a little bit worse at that, and it's just like, is there anything it's better at? And there is TRCD. TRCD 36 at 6400 megabits per second on SK Hynix is not a thing unless your SK Hynix DIMMs are very cold. And by very cold, I mean below 0 degrees Celsius. So, yeah. Unfortunately, like a couple ticks of TRCD, like slightly lower TRCD does not make up for all the other like weaknesses. Like it doesn't hurt, but it doesn't, you know, really compensate for all the other like everything else kind of sucks. Well, it doesn't suck, but it's everything else is a little bit worse. And so having like two timings be slightly better just doesn't do much. Even if they are like TRCD, which generally is a pretty important timing to overall performance, but like the thing is it's not massively better. It's like 1 or 2 ticks. So yeah, and the difference between, you know, like 36 and 40 is not much. They're basically the same thing. Actually 40 is high. I should have said 36 and 38. Yeah. But even 36 and 40 is only like a 10% gap, so depending on which direction you go in, I am aware of that, but yeah, still not much of a difference. Anyway, let's punch in all the timings again. I wish you could save profiles in Mem Tweak it so that every time you restarted, you could just preload all your settings. What did I want to punch in? Right, 68. By the way, I don't have these written down. I am just memorizing them as we go. Not the most efficient way of doing things. Yeah, that just fired. Yep, that just applies. You know what? I am not going to mess with this one. I don't feel like it's not doing 355. Going from 390 to 377 or something is a waste of freaking time. So now we get to the last timing, which is TRAS, which funnily enough doesn't tend to do much of anything to performance in my experience, and I don't think we'll see it show up in Mem Tweak it here either. I mean, I don't think we'll see it show up in Mem Test. I guess we could run IDA on these settings just to see, like, oh no, it's unstable. Why is it unstable? Is it because of you? It better be because of that. Oh, it's very upset. Okay, actually, I think it might be TRCD. Why? Stop? Because I want to restart the test. Like, the thing is, unfortunately, memtest, probably its biggest flaw is that it's a very static power load on the memory. So if you're having like voltage regulation issues with your memory power delivery, like if the memory power delivery struggles with voltage regulation, Memtest will pick up on it when it's starting and when it's finishing, not while it's running, because while it's running, it's a very sustained like load on the memory chips. So they pull a very consistent amount of current, and consequently you don't get like voltage regulation related errors. So yeah. Can I change the TRCD down to 36 now? It could also be that the DIMMs are too warm again. No, I think that was a voltage regulation thing, because that happened while it was starting up. Anyway, let's try 77. And it... Are you kidding me? It should be able to go below that. The XMP's 76. Okay, we're actually going to try change that one in the BIOS, because I don't believe that it doesn't do less than 77. And actually, we might as well change the TCL in the BIOS so that we don't have like when we run IDA on this, we're not running it with like garbage tier settings. Actually, one thing we could try is actually punch all the settings into the BIOS right now and then see if that leads to any improvement in the OS, because you can't, it's not necessarily possible to go from like completely loose to completely tight while in the operating system. So, yeah, anyway, let's go to the top again. And we're going to go like, I'm not sure about 32, so we'll go with 34, 36, 76. That's the XMP for these. TRFC2, we're not going to set it. Like, it just doesn't make a difference. Yeah, okay, MSI does let you do that. TRD and L, RTP. I think we have the other register for that. 16. TCWL, 32. CKE4. So TCWL on like general safe value is either equal to cast latency or 2 ticks lower than cast latency, though on Hynix on some Hynix memory sticks it can go very, very low. Oh wait, no, I do actually want to see the postcode when we restart this, so I'm gonna set it like this. So you can see I'm skipping the different rank, different DIMM timings. And actually, even the description in the BIOS tells you what those are, so that's kind of neat. 17, 68, 56. And TRD pre, we're going to go 16, 122, TX... Oh, yeah, TXP4. You could set that in the OS, but you don't have to. Like, if I've never seen that not work. Anything else I wanted to change? Yeah, I don't think so. So what we're going to do now is I do want to save a profile. And I pressed the wrong button because Gigabyte BIOS shortcuts are different. Wait. Samsung. No. That should fire right up. Hello? That's weird. Okay, so it just passed memory training. And we should be heading into the OS very soon. Actually, right now. So that was very quick. Very, very quick. Admittedly, we're not... Well, no, even considering the fact that, like, we're not at a super high memory speed. This is still a very quick memory train. Like, as in, it got through the training procedure very quickly. Anyway, so let's hit IDA. Admittedly, I do realize now that, like, I didn't run IDA with XMP, so I don't have comparison data, but I want a rough idea of what this is doing. Yeah, 103 gigs per second. You'd expect that at 6,400 megabits per second. And 54 nanoseconds of latency. Not bad. And I'm sure if we rerun that a bunch, it might come down. Actually, we should just run Intel memory latency checker instead to get a good, like, proper memory latency result, because IDA's really inconsistent. And so we're going to run this instead. Oh. So the way this works is it actually tests the memory latency depending on how much load is on the memory controller. So the top two tests where the bandwidth is really high, the memory controller is doing a lot of work. And so the latency is higher. And as the bandwidth drops off, the latency comes down. So this basically gives you a much more general idea of what your memory latency performance is like across like a varying load range compared to something like IDA, which is one very specific latency scenario. I was kind of hoping for less. $50. I mean, this is not a bad result by any means, but... Well, I guess it makes sense at 6,400 and the timings... It's mostly just the primaries, though. No, like, this is a solid result. Like, by DDR5 standards, you can do way worse than this. But this is also not really... It's not anywhere near the peak of DDR5 latency results. So, yeah. Anyway, now let's check if I can lower any of these any further. 72. Oh, now it works. Like, now we can change TRAS. Oh, wait, the TWR... Oh, that might explain it. 68. Wait, no, it isn't changing. Oh, right, because I changed the cast latency. That's why the TWR is different. Oh, man, I'm been awake too long. 66, 64. There's definitely a limit to how low you can set the TRAS on these. It's not like the SK Hynix DIMMs where you can just whack it to 28 and they don't care. Which is like a pretty neat feature of SK Hynix DDR5. Is just like there are certain timings on the SK Hynix DDR5 which just go crazy low. I think at 32 it'll probably stop working. Oh, no, still working. 28. Wait, what? How? That shouldn't work. It shouldn't do 28. The thing is, TRAS is also one of the timings that really doesn't do much of anything to performance, so that's why we're running memory latency checker, because it's a lot more sensitive than IDA and a lot more consistent. So if there's anything noteworthy in terms of memory latency, we should see it here. It is still running. Also, this is a lot harder to run than IDA. I think it crashed. So it might be unstable, it's just not locking up the system yet. Okay, let's try mem test then. We're going to start it at 36 and then we're going to try lower it. Oh wait, we're not going to try lower it because it's already erroring. Yup. Let's try 44. Is that TRAS though, or is that something else maybe? Like, it could be the TRCD. Bump that up to 37. Huh, now it's happy. Okay, 36. So you can't change TRAS while memtest is running, apparently. Okay. That's new. Now I really want to do the same thing with SK Hynix DIMMs, because I think it would behave very differently. And it doesn't want to reset again. Well, at least it fast boots fast. Okay, so I guess try TRCD 37, but low TRAS this time around. And see if then it starts memtest without errors. So we're going to go straight to 36, 37. Huh. That's very interesting. Okay, what if 28? What then? Okay, 28 definitely doesn't work. Oh boy, yeah, it definitely doesn't work. Oh man. Yeah, so... Well, at least we know this definitely does something. Right? Like, this is one of the things I've kind of had, like, I've wondered about. It's not actually possible as far as I know, but it is something that has crossed my mind, is like some of the memory chips which do incredibly low TRAS is like, is it possible that they just ignore that setting? But it shouldn't be possible because that timing is entirely controlled by the memory controller as far as I know. So the the memory chip really shouldn't be able to just ignore whatever TRAS you punch in, but oh boy. Okay, so evidently like either 44 was still kind of unstable, or at 28 it caused such an like some kind of error that cascaded through the system until it blue screen. But the system still runs. Again, don't do this to your daily operating system. There's a decent chance you're going to destroy your file, like, well, everything. Like, yeah, if you're going to be doing memory overclocking, you should disconnect all of the SSDs that you don't want suffering data, like, or disconnect all of the drives that you don't want to suffer data loss. Because, yeah, if anything, if any of them is getting accessed for any reason and you get a bad enough memory crash, it could potentially, like, cost you data. So, yeah. Anyway, so there's definitely a lower limit to TRAS, and it seems kind of hard to find. So that's annoying. And also TRCD is evidently a bit too low. Let's try 44. 66 maybe? Okay. Now I did want to try lowering these two. So 116, 116, 79, 112, 112, 75. Like, this isn't actually a real value. It's just a rough indicator of, like, is it going to be unstable? Which is why I'm, like, checking it. Because previously, like, the lowest we've got it during this video was, like, 67. So I'm assuming if I get it below 67, it'll just crash again. So that's what I'm sort of looking for here. 108. 71. Okay, 106. No, I said, screw it. Let's go 105. 68. 10. 10. Well, screw it. 100. Oh, now that works. Okay. Yeah, so these two are linked to your, like, cast latency. So as you lower your cast latency, you can generally run these lower and lower, is my experience. So 88. Somewhat disproportionately so. Might also be affected by TRAS now that I think. Let's try that. Oh, nope. Isn't. Well, that there goes that theory. So I'm going to go with, like, yeah, they only depend on the cast latency then. 85. Down at 48, which is pretty low. I expect a flood of errors. That's surprisingly stable. It managed to spawn like 3 threads. Yeah, it's really not doing that badly. Interesting. But can I make it worse? I mean, of course, if I lower it far enough, it'll definitely crash eventually. It's really interesting, like, how with cast latency 40, this didn't work at all. 71. Still running. 67. Still running. 65. 61. 55? Like, I wanted to crash at this point. Like, come on. This isn't fair. It's still running. 51 then? Like, I don't want to skip so much that, like, it's a big gap, but... $49. Okay, 49 is definitely way too low. So that's good to know. Because that just insta-crashed. So that is still looser than what you get on Hynix, but it's not nearly as bad as what we were stuck with at the start. I feel like I need to do more testing on like how cast latency affects those two timings, because like on Hynix it's noticeable from the fact that like the TWR calculation ends up different, but here it's like a pretty drastic change to stability. And that's far more interesting, because on Hynix you can kind of use the similar values across like a very large range of cast latencies, and it doesn't really care. Also, that potentially means that video that I did with like safe SK Hynix timings doesn't work for CL40 kits, because I did it on a CL36 kit. Damn. Oh well. I don't know, it just goes straight to 77. Let's try 65, 65. I mean, honestly, 57 should be perfectly fine, because like, well, not perfectly fine. Like, this might still be unstable if you run a harsh enough memory stress test, but like, it should be fine for what I want to do, which is I want to run Intel Memory Latency Checker to see how this performs, and then I want to run IDA as well, so that we get like a more normie-friendly memory benchmark. Also, my voice is absolutely trashed today. So, yeah. Like, I feel fine. It's just like I don't sound fine. So, yeah, that's fun. Like, I'm not doing that on purpose. That it's just like I've been like it's been really hot today, and my like I guess my like throat's dry or something, cuz yeah. Um and I have been drinking water. So, yeah, that just seems to kind of happen to me if I talk like too much for too long. I get the feeling we're going to see the same minimum latency as in like the previous best test. Oh, and I still didn't run the XMP settings for comparison. Damn. Actually, it was almost looking like it might be worse. Which can happen if you have like really bad memory stability, like you can actually lose performance. Yeah, it's like very slightly worse. I wonder why. Let's try to rerun that. It's still the same, isn't it? Oh no, it's slightly better. It might be within margin of error, to be completely honest. Because like, what is that? That's like 0.2 nanoseconds, I think, or 0.3, which is it's not a very large margin. Let's just put it that way. Now, I kind of want to run PyPrime on this. So we will, because it's a very quick benchmark. And I'm just wondering, like, the thing is, this is generally a good non-synthetic memory latency benchmark. It scales a bit too much with CPU core clock, but it's not so CPU core clock sensitive that it's like a massive difference. But one thing I've been somewhat suspicious of is that it might scale with L3 cache, which would give the 12900K an unfair advantage over the 12600KF. Which means I can't compare numbers from my 12600KF to the numbers from my 12900K, which seems to be the case because this is currently outperforming some of the best DDR5 settings I've ever run on the 12600KF, and this is nowhere near the best settings I've ever run on the 12900K. So, yeah, also this is clocked lower than the 12600KF, so yeah, the L3 cache is definitely a concern for this benchmark. Well, that's annoying. Oh well. Let's hit IDA. You know, let's run something that most people at least recognize. Now the motherboard's making coil whine noises. Actually, I'm not sure. I think it's the motherboard. I don't think it's the power management chip on the memory sticks, because the memories... Well... I've not run these sticks in a bunch of boards, so like that much yet, so maybe it is the sticks. Anyway, 52 nanoseconds. It's certainly a solid result for DDR5. I mean, it's not, you know, like I have seen people get under 50 nanoseconds, but not at 6400 megabits per second and not at CL34. Yeah, if you want to go under 50 nanoseconds, you generally need to be north of 6800 megabits per second. Otherwise, it's just not happening. 53, yeah, okay. I think that 51, 52 nanosecond range is about the limit for this setup right now. Admittedly, this board should be able to clock the memory higher than 6400. I just chose 6400 because this is a sort of like a speed that you could hit on other motherboards maybe. So we're not looking at timings that are like super loose compared to like normal motherboards. This is a Unify X, so it does have a 1 DIMM per channel memory topology, and consequently it does just kind of outclock the vast majority of Z690 motherboards when it comes to memory speed. So, yeah, anyway. The other thing that I wanted to check is the RTLs, which 66, 67, 61, 62... I actually don't know what they're supposed to be at this speed, so this also doesn't say anything to me. But anyway, right. Let's run the XMP settings. So IDA, we got 52 nanoseconds with like 103 gigabytes per second read. Also, this video is almost... Man, I wanted this video... Like, the whole idea behind this video was, like... Because the other video I did with overclocking these DIMMs was actually kind of similar to this one. But it was 2 hours long, and so I like, that's the main reason I don't want to publish it. It's also not that good. It's 2 hours long, and it's really not very good. Or I don't know that it's not very good. It's not good. I don't like it. I don't think it delivers enough information in a short enough amount of time to be considered good. This video is also a bit, you know, light on the information density, if you ask me, but it's not anywhere near as bad as the previous version of this video, so yeah. Anyway, we're just going to set everything to auto, which should make this load up the XMP. I think MSI boards load the XMP timings on auto. This is a thing, like Asus boards don't do that. If you have an Asus board and you punch in, like if you want to go back to XMP, you can't just punch in auto for everything. That doesn't work. I've been very upset by that in the past. So anyway, so I did manage to revert everything to auto. We're going to drop the memory speed to auto. We're going to set this to auto, and I'm just going to leave the CPU settings, and I mean, I guess I could set all of the voltages to auto as well. We don't need that anymore, but we do need the same CPU settings, otherwise our comparison will be invalid. And I'm going to hazard as a guess that the latency is going to be approaching 60 nanoseconds. And when I say approaching 60 nanoseconds, I mean like north of 55 nanoseconds. And the memory bandwidth is going to be... I'm going to pull up a calculator and cheat. It's not really cheating. Ah, damn it. I can't math. It's going to be probably like 93 gigabytes per second. Like, it can't be more than 96. Actually, it might be 90. Yeah, I'm really not sure what to expect, so... Anyway, let's check Mem Tweak it, that everything loaded up correctly. Incidentally, I have tried to get Asus to put a, like, official download page up for Mem Tweak it. I don't know if that's going to happen, because this is my favorite memory timing, like, checking software and adjustment software. And unfortunately, the only place to get it is, like, hardware bot forums, which is just... Like, Asus has, like, product pages. I don't know why they can't have this in the utilities for some of their, like, ROG boards. Especially because this is, like, an ROG utility. So, anyway, let's hit IDA. And the XMP did load up correctly. And we're just going to hit the memory test. Oh, whoa, I was a bit under. 95 gigs. Oh, but the write is really bad, which makes sense. Like, if you look at the write-to-write timing, it's rough. It's really bad. Actually, we can probably, like, well, I guess I can just straight up show you the adjustments right now. Like, what if I didn't clock the memory up? What does that do, right? And, yeah, 60 nanoseconds, pretty much spot on. So, yeah, quite a lot of headroom in this memory. Well, I don't know how easy it is to stabilize yet, but there is headroom for overclocking. Whether or not it'll be viable for 24/7 operation, I'm not sure. Okay, let's just drop these to 4. 4, 16. No, I said 16. Max this out. That's probably going to make the biggest difference in IDA. 12. Actually, we might not be, because there's less voltage now, so we might not be able to go as low. With some of the tertiaries, because those do scale with memory voltage a bit. Let's drop TCK all the way down. And I don't think that'll drastically change the performance, but we can do it, so why not? 16. I guess we can drop this to 7. Oh, look, 100 gigabytes per second, which violates the laws of physics, because at 6,000 megabits per second effective data rate, you cannot transfer 99 gigabytes per second across a 128-bit memory controller. It is physically impossible. But unfortunately, like, the reason why that happens is it is incredibly difficult to run a memory benchmark that doesn't hit the L3 cache. And so basically we're picking up some L3 cache bandwidth in that, which is adding to the overall result. Anyway, our memory latency came way down, and most of that improvement is going to be from the TREFI. And then when we hit like that 51 nanoseconds with like the sort of fully tuned setup, that would have been because we were at a higher memory speed as well. As well as, you know, CL34 is slightly better than 36, but it's not a huge difference. We can do that. Actually, maybe this will still do 14. Okay, write test is like topping out at a reasonable number. These should help the write test quite a bit. Like, it is not impossible to get the write test to be as high as the read test. So, at least on Hynix DIMMs, it's not impossible, or almost as high as the read test. But, like, get them within like a gigabyte of each other is very doable. So, let's just quickly try do that. Oh yeah, yeah, that helps. 7.7, 7.7. I don't think it'll hit it. Like, Hynix can do really tight write timings. So, yeah, like, it's picking up a little bit, but I think it'll crash before it maxes out. Or I think it'll crash before we get anywhere near 99 gigabytes per second. 94.3. Okay, let's try less TRAS. I don't think that'll do anything. 94.3. Yeah, I called it. 40. Yeah, that didn't really help. I didn't, like, with the TREFI this loose, like, yeah, of course that wouldn't do anything. 59? Wait. 59. 59. And let's try that 13 again. I mean, we're at 6,000, so maybe the lower voltage won't matter too much. 94.4. Yeah, it's going to crash before we get there. 55, 55. Like, lower write cast latency would also help, but that also doesn't go that low on Samsung in my experience. And for that one, you do need to go into the BIOS to change it, so 94 point. I think now it's getting to the point that it's unstable because that is coming down instead of up. 51. That's new. That's new. Usually it's a blue screen. A black screen is quite surprising. And it reset itself. So, yeah, I was right. It'll crash before I get the memory speed up any higher. Anywhere near 99 gigabytes per second. But anyway, that is it for this video. Hopefully this was somewhat like helpful or entertaining maybe. Quite frankly, I don't know why anybody watches my videos, but yeah, if for some reason you're still here after an hour and 30 minutes, I hope you enjoyed the content that you just consumed. And if you did, you could like, share, subscribe. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, you can leave them down in the comment section below. And if you'd like to support what I do here with the channel, I have a Patreon, which, funnily enough, actually no, it funds things like the GT1030 GPU that I use for display output, as well as the capture card. Like, we can't forget the capture card. Yeah, like, I have a Patreon. There's the AHOC Teespring store where you can get shirts, hoodies, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch. And then I also have a Bandcamp. And there's a link to all of that down in the description below. If you'd like to check them out, that would be much appreciated. And that is it for the video. So yeah, thanks for watching and goodbye.